Good YouTube, Quinn Wade coming to y'all with that basketball analysis on analysisplayground.com. This is a 2 year update on Kevin Durant going to the Phoenix Suns. I was a guy that said they will not be contenders, they will not be winning the championship. This doesn't make them significantly better. I liked it, the DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, and the Chris Paul team. Obviously, Chris Paul got older. They picked up Tyus Jones 2 days ago, and now they got a point guard to run their offense. I said that they had to go all in with Kevin Durant because he's older. He kind of speeds you up a little bit because Mikal Bridges is obviously under 30. DeAndre Ayton is under 30. So those guys give you more of a time to trial and error with things. But when you trade both of them, then you find yourself in a situation with a Yusuf Nurkic and a Bradley Beal, two guys that we know can compete, two guys we know can do their jobs, and they can do it very well. And although Bradley Beal had the team at the palm of his hand in Washington, he had to give up the ball a lot more and sacrifice a lot more playing with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. Although it did work in his first iteration to get them to the playoffs, nobody thought that this team would miss the playoffs. Let's get that out the way. But we also thought that they would be better because they ended up getting Kevin Durant, and that just wasn't the case. Last year, they lose to the Denver Nuggets in the second round in six. And then this year, they get swept by the Minnesota Timberwolves. And a lot of people was thinking, well, if this team is going to play that bad or that easy against a team that even didn't even make it to the conference finals, which was the Timberwolves, what is this real? What's the point of even having this team together? And like the GM said, a lot of situations are worse than the Suns, but they did sacrificing a lot of their money on a team that's mediocre. And I don't really think this team has a lane of getting better. And I said that in my first video that I made about Kevin Durant getting traded. This team will just be stuck for 3 straight years, which this is the third year of, if you're going to trade Mikal Bridges and those guys for a guy like Kevin Durant because you feel like he gives you a higher ceiling, which could be true and not true depending on the roster situation. We've seen the same thing. Like I compared, you got Kyrie Irving, you got James Harden, and you got Kevin Durant, and they don't win you a championship that year, or they just started to blow up the second year already, and egos are a part of that. Obviously, this situation is similar where you lose to a team like Denver. I mean, a team like Denver, yeah, in the second round, and then you obviously lose in the first round to Minnesota. Like I said before, they had a similar thing happen in Brooklyn, which I did bring up that point that this team remind me a lot of the Nets, where they got a whole lot of guys that can get you a bucket, a whole lot of guys that can score, but they really not the really that tough to score on. And obviously, Frank Vogel helped them defensively and become a solid defensive team. And that's something that we knew that they could be. It wasn't like a surprise or anything, but we knew this team would be able to score a lot of points, and that was one of their favorite things to say. But these are natural born scorers. These are guys that can hit you for 50 to 60 any given night because they done did it multiple times in their careers, and that's not a surprise. But when it comes to playing value possession basketball, when it comes to shot selection, when it comes to passionate care and being able to lock in focus, I feel like they just lack that, and they still do. Like, none of these trades or none of these moves that they have made changed any of that. And they would say they don't have a point guard. Now with Tyus Jones being added to the roster, you can see why they went in that particular direction because they had to. They really did have to find a way to get them a point guard that they can trust, that can run the system, that can get everybody in their spots, that can get these guys running great sets to get the best offense that they can get out of each possession. And I feel like he has done that his entire career. And you're not really paying them that much money because you look at how their salary cap sheet is, especially after the Bradley Beal trade, they're even more stuck than they were in the Kevin Durant trade, and they already was stuck just with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, and they upside would just be a first round exit team, possibly after that second year, which they became this year. So I'm really confused of what they're trying to really do. Once I seen them go for Yusuf Nurkic, I knew they was going in the wrong direction, especially with the Bol Bol thing. We know that Bol Bol is not a huge difference maker. We know the same thing about Yusuf Nurkic. We know the same thing about majority of their roster. You got guys that just a bunch of mercenaries just going to a team trying to get buckets, score, or just live that NBA life as long as they can and not really caring about winning. And Kevin Durant was a guy that said, I'm just trying to hoop. I'm just trying to enjoy hooping. I already won my titles. I'm not caring about this type of status. I'm not trying to play the game for these particular reasons. And that's not what Devin Booker wanted. And when Kevin Durant got in his press conference, he felt like he wasn't going to be in Phoenix that long. And he said it, I might not be here that long. And his contract that he signed with the Nets before he got traded puts him in that situation where they can do trial and error with him and see what works and see what doesn't work. But if they're going into the NBA season with this roster, I still suspect them to be a 6, 7, or 8 seed if Kevin Durant can stay healthy, which hasn't been the case. Remember, when they traded for Kevin Durant, he was already coming in injured, and he was only able to play 8 games to help them make the playoffs before he went back out with more injuries. Like Kevin Durant was finally healthy this season, and now he's getting injured in the Olympics. Like the older you get, you really can't be durable. You really don't heal the same. You really can't over hoop because of the nagging minor injuries that can turn to big injuries. And he already done had the foot surgery. He already done had the Achilles injury. You don't want nothing serious to happen to him, or you don't want them to nag on too long because Devin Booker and Bradley Beal, is that enough to win in the West? Is that enough to beat some of them East teams when you know that he's that valuable of a player? We've seen him on the All NBA team, so we know how good Kevin Durant still is. But he hasn't really made any team crazy better for like 5 years. Like after he came off that Achilles injury in Golden State, which makes sense, you do get worse because you lose a lot of speed and you lose a lot of movement and you can't do stuff laterally. Takes you time to get back to that physical confidence that you was at when you was healthy, and it does take some time to be able to get that contact in where you're not scared to bump and it's not scared to get hit, not scared to go up for blocks. And it takes time to get that mental back too when you have those type of injuries, and I can understand that. And I'm not saying it because I want Kevin Durant to fail or I don't want him to succeed or I'm doubting him. I'm only doubting him just because it's so many great teams in the Western Conference alone, and that don't even include the Eastern Conference because you got to go 3 rounds just to get to the NBA Finals. And watching this team play, watching this team get put together, you only can really scrap together what you can scrap together with those 3 guys making that type of money. And if they're not going to play at a Hall of Fame level, then this team was just a waste. Like this is one of those teams where you may not even get to a conference finals. That's how tough the Western Conference is, and that's reality. It's not like I'm making it up. It's not like y'all probably would agree with that. Like when you look at the top 5 teams and the top 16, if you had the Lakers, there's no way you have a team like the Phoenix Suns in there unless Kevin Durant is just averaging 35 like he did before in the NBA Finals, which he will have to do. He will have to have an MVP type of season in postseason to get this team to where it has to go. Obviously, Devin Booker is great, 27 a game. He's a great passer. He's evolving. He's learning. He's in the Olympics too, and that's going to grow his game and grow his knowledge. But also, Bradley Beal is a guy that he's always going to be a tough fit because he's a natural born scorer. So he's not good at deferring. He's not good at playing defense. He just knows how to play his way, his style, and you kind of have to break him in because he's not going anywhere on that contract because most teams don't want him until it's aspiring. And even if it is, it's going to be a big number, and you have to be able to match salary to be able to get that done. Same with Kevin Durant. So they better off just hooping and having fun. Like he said to Kyrie Irving, I'm just coming here to have fun. I'm just coming here to play with a guy I wanted to play with. Let's see what happens. Then next thing you know, they get James Harden, LaMarcus Aldridge. They get all these other guys on this roster. It looks like a championship caliber roster. Then James Harden goes down, and Kyrie goes down, and then the next season the Nets blow it all up. And I can see Kevin Durant being on the move, like he said at the press conference, because it just don't make sense to have a guy like Devin Booker who's still in his 20s and to have two 30-year-olds that can't really carry their weight the same way that they used to, and you're still trying to figure out a way to win when this is not a team that can actually do it contractually, and you're stuck with this team just trying to find a way to stay together until they have the ability to go to park, which will be mostly next year. So based off next year and how this season goes, this team would just look drastically different again. The Chris Paul iteration was the better version. Chris Paul was more determined. He was coming here to prove a point. They got to the finals. He got these young guys to play hard, to play together, and he was clutch, and he took this team to another level with his play, especially in the Clippers series and in the series before that. And he also helped them go up 2-0 by his finals performances. Chris Paul made a real difference when he came to Phoenix like he knew he could, and Kevin Durant didn't do that, and neither did Bradley Beal, because it only really took Chris Paul that one season to get that far. And just remember, there was a number one team in the NBA the next season after that. And even though they lost to Dallas in the flop series, but they at least got to their peak, which is NBA Finals. If you want to put a championship roster together, you want to at least get to the finals, because then you have a legit chance to win a championship, especially when you up 2-0 in a series against my hometown team, the Milwaukee Bucks. Even though they flopped, this team don't have that same capabilities. And you would think that they would, because they have Kevin Durant, and most people still would call Kevin Durant the better player. Obviously, he's younger than Chris Paul. Anyway, he's taller than Chris Paul, but they have that killer instinct type of style in their primes. But that's the similarity that ends, because Chris Paul was a great defender his entire career, even when he got older, and he was just a more passionate, caring competitor. And he embraced the competition. And Kevin Durant is more of a nonchalant. I'm cool. I'm gonna do what I'm supposed to do. I'm gonna work as hard as I'm supposed to. I'm gonna show up and hoop. That type of personality is anti-Jordan, anti-competitive. You can get too relaxed till you wake up and realize you're not the same guy anymore. And I feel like Kevin Durant is realizing that in the Olympics. He goes off, and those are the type of games that he did the last two seasons, and it just don't matter when you're going against Denver, Minnesota, the Lakers, the teams like all these teams like the Pelicans are up and coming too with Zion Williamson, and they was a playoff team last year. And I don't think they can beat Denver in the series. I don't think that they can beat Minnesota, who they got swept. I don't think they can beat the Lakers in the series. I don't think that they can beat even the Golden State Warriors in the series. And I would even question, could they even beat the Pelicans? Because if you're not going to defend and you're not going to care, that gives everybody an opportunity to beat you. And even if you can come out that West, can they even beat the Celtics, which has a team that matches up well against this team, particularly because of their guard play. And we can see a similar Drew Holiday type of thing, where you can defend and cause so much disruptions that you can turn those into buckets, and you can be able to beat this team by defense. They always say defense wins championships. They don't have great defenders on this roster, and they still don't. And I feel like they changed, some of their roster at the bottom. One of the flaws was they didn't have enough depth. They didn't have enough bench. I would say they had 8 men that they can rely on. Now they have more than that, as they've been trying to add to this roster as much as they can, while still not trying to be in that tax as much, which they're already there. But it's just crazy seeing the Suns be the complete opposite of what the Chris Paul teams did. And now they're on their last two tries this season and next season, possibly with Kevin Durant. And I do want to know who the suitors are. People say it's Houston, but they're in a young situation and they don't want to pay that much money, and because they have to pay their young guys, with their contract extensions, and they're going to kick in, and they already got Jabari Smith Jr., who they're developing. They don't need Kevin Durant to come in and take his spot when he's already training him to how to keep the spot in Houston. You keep your spot, I keep my spot. The NBA stay competitive, and we're both happy. I don't know if I will be doing that, because I'm not really trying to lose to the guy, or I'm not trying to help Houston take our spot, since they're a team that had a decent season last year, and now they have the ability to get even better, and we're still trying to keep our spots in the Western Conference too. And they're a team that you got to watch out for also. And I'm looking at the Suns and saying, wow, this really is a mess. it's a mess to watch this team play the way they play, and see that even after that elimination, you don't even really hear about the Suns. This is a team that you're only really hearing about them because of Kevin Durant. He's relevant because of his ability to be a superstar now because of all the work he put in, but he's just not the same player, and he shouldn't be after that type of injury. But I don't know if I would make that trade. I still say I'd rather play the lone ball game, even if they have ego problems, even if they're not meshing as well. You didn't have to switch it up that fast because you were just the number one seed a year ago. I know that Chris Paul left because he got older, but at least you try to replace the point guard situation, and you keep pushing with that Mikal Aiden team because Kevin Durant was just too old, too torn, too beat up, even when he got there, and it didn't really make sense to put him with Booker, especially with Bradley Beal contractually wise. It didn't really make sense that you can add a talent like that and add a payroll like that, and then you think you can just compete with anybody just because of one player when he hasn't had that much success outside of Golden State, which is the team that he had the most success, winning multiple titles and going to multiple finals outside of OKC, which he also lost in five, which wasn't really a competitive series against the Miami Heat. So you got to have that in the back of your mind too. And Harden did really step up, and Westbrook had huge games because that was a team that was great. It wasn't just all Kevin Durant, but he had a huge part to play into it. The team like Serge Ibaka and those guys stepped up in the big moments to get them there, and ultimately he showed up in the finals averaging 30 and dominating that matchup against LeBron. But we know how that went. LeBron had the better team and they stepped up, and after that it just been a nightmare outside of Golden State for a guy like Kevin Durant, because if you playing a couple games and a couple practices and saying that you might not be in Phoenix that long, that's not what the fans wanted to hear within the first 2 weeks of you being there. And that just lets you know that they not happy with what they're getting, and they're not happy with the performances that he's having. And there's nothing you can do about it, especially after that type of injury. But that's all I got to say is that my video aged well of the Kevin Durant trade. I didn't think they was contenders. I didn't think they had a shot to win a title. In reality, second round, first round this year, nobody's even talking about the Phoenix Suns when it comes to competition, when it comes to who's the top five, who's the guys to look out for, who's the teams to beat. They're not on anybody list this whole year, and even this offseason, people talking about the Warriors more than they talk about the Suns. And they have two All-Stars. They have two All-NBA players and a guy that was an All-NBA player and a scoring leader before in Bradley Beal, and nobody even cares about this team really as a competitive team. And I remember when the trade happened, everybody was saying this is the deal they needed to make. This is the deal that's going to change everything. This is the deal that's going to get them over the hump. And it wasn't even reality or close to it in the first 2 weeks. And I seen people changing their opinion on a day-to-day. Like when the instant reactions came in and then they started seeing how the team performed, they all changed within 2 weeks. And I was a person that was steady, and I'm still making this video to show that I'm steady with my opinion because I was factually correct about everything that happened in that trade, even before Bradley Beal got there. And now they're in a situation where the only way they can correct it is either they run out these contracts completely and just take a hit that we flopped. It didn't go our way. We still got Devin Booker. Let's continue to figure out how to put more stars around them that want to come play with them. And that's the only key to success. They did it with Chris Paul. They drafted well Mikal Bridges and Aiden. They turned them into other assets. They got some depreciating value on these assets. All you can do is clear cap space and try again in free agency. Sad part, I don't think it's going to be too many free agents running to play with Devin Booker unless they're hungry for money. And they will have plenty of it eventually if they ride out these contracts, because these guys are so old and their contracts are so high that I don't really see nobody making a move to get these guys, honestly. And that's no disrespect. It's just the way they played. It's just the roles that they would have to accept on other teams. And I don't think them or the teams will accept anything less. Like, you know what you're getting at this point because you've seen enough footage. You've seen enough stuff from these guys. And ultimately, you know exactly what you're going to get. And unfortunately, it's not a high or a crazy thing. You know, the next time they get traded, I don't think it's going to be this crazy news that people are going to go crazy over just because these guys haven't really, you know, did the things that they used to do, which they shouldn't at their age. So I look at it like that. Bradley Beal wasn't going to cut it. They had to make that big splash to get the excitement there after that move. And I feel like Tyus Jones, that's the best you can do. Make some noise because you got a point guard that's solid, and that's the big offseason move. I think it's crazy. Like, you do have to move Kevin Durant up. He can't play the three. You got to be playing the four. Bradley Beal got to play two. Maybe even Devin Booker playing some small forward to put Tyus Jones in the point guard. I see that that's what they're discussing. Should Tyus Jones even be a starter on this roster? That's how in desperate they are to make this Kevin Durant trade be a little bit of a hoorah or a hooray type of thing, and it's still not going to work. Like, they expect championships. If you making a move for Chris Paul, that's what you expect. If you make a move for KD, who's on the same level at that time, that's what you expect. And that's what they was expecting when they gave your reactions. It ain't reality now. So I guess another win for Analysis Playground. I've been really hitting the drafts. I've really been hitting the trades. I really been hitting free agency. I really been hitting the instant analysis and the breakdowns of how things should work out and how they do work out. And I've been really accurate with my approach. And I like the results that I'm giving you people when I'm making my videos and how well they've been aging from all those different type of video styles that I have. Other than that, comment, like, subscribe, and share. Quinn Wade, Basketball Analysis, signing out.